computer. Okay, it's recording now. Okay. Okay, Manina just shared the workbook today. Today we have two files. One is the workbook and another one is the template for today's activity. So it's one of the key activity in our selection for the next phase of the Shell LiveWIRE. I think number one, we want to see what your ideas are. Number two, we want to see your business model, whether it is something that is feasible, viable, and desirable. And number three, we want to see whether the cash flow and financial projection part of your business is realistic, right? So that's something that we will work together today. So without further ado, let's start, right? So for today's topic, it is cash and cost management for entrepreneurs. This is very important because I do see in our experience with dealing with early stage startups, most of the time they think that the business financial part will take care of itself if they have a strong product. That unfortunately is not the case, and more often than not, you need to really monitor and manage your cash flow, right? So for today, we will look at tools for developing a short-term financial strategy, because for many startups, I think we do not have enough cash flow to sort of like sustain us for years, right? So we need to look at how long can we sustain before our business actually meet product market fit, or is a space where I think it's starting to generate revenue. So we're going to look at managing cash that's coming into business. We're going to look at managing cash that's going out of your business, managing your inventory if you're dealing with products, finalizing your short-term strategy, and creating a simple financial dashboard. That's for the first part of today's webinar. Then we will look at the planning for financing the business, because sometimes, not sometimes, for some businesses, I think they require external capital beyond from the founder in themselves. So for the second part, we will look at what are the options available for us. So it's deciding if you need to pivot your business as well, because as I was asking before we start our class, whether some of you have started your business, some of you are just starting your business, or has the COVID-19 situation affected your business in any way, right? Next, if we need to pivot, then we need to adapt and change our business model canvas. So that's something that we will look at a case study that I've created. It's a fictional case study, but quite a realistic one. And I hope it's relevant to what you're doing. And then thirdly, we will look at building a cash flow. This is so important, because if you don't have a cash flow, you don't have a map. And for businesses, without a map, you're driving in the blind, and that's not very advisable. And lastly, if you look at your cash flow and you feel that you need some financial support, we will look at what are the options available. All right. So those are the two parts that we'll cover today. Tools for developing a short-term financial strategy, and part two is planning for financing the business. For many of you who are in the tech side of business, for example, you hear a lot of businesses going into like seed capital and getting Series A and Series B. That can be an option for you as well. Please let me know if the sound is unclear or if I need to speak louder, right? All right. So this is the first part, which is tools for developing a short-term financial strategy. So by short-term, I mean looking at between 12 to 18-month runway here, right? All right. So these are the key definitions that I would hope for all of you to be comfortable with and master in managing your cash management, right? So the first thing is to know your financial runway. Financial runway basically means that the time that you have before you run out of cash. I see from my experience engaging with startups, especially in Sarawak, most of the time you start with very minimal or no cash, and hoping to sort of work your way from that position, with sometimes at the expense of not having any income. That's actually quite a risky and dangerous way of running your business, right? I would advise for you to at least have some initial capital, or at least um, look at an option where you can acquire that capital soon, right? And before you start investing in rental and staff and all the other expenses that come with your business. So in calculating your financial runway, I'll show an actual example in the next slides, but it's basically your monthly burn rate minus your actual revenue divided by the bank balance available in your bank, right? So that's the financial runway, which is very important. Basically, it answers the question of how long can you survive if you're not generating any revenue. So if you're not generating any revenue, that means that your monthly gross burn rate, which could be your rental, your salaries, your utilities, and all the accounting and legal fees that comes with doing a business, divide by your bank balance, and that will tell you how long can you survive before you start owing your staff or owing your landlord and all that, right? Number two, we will look at the cash flow statement. So this is looking at how much revenue is coming in, how much cash is going out in terms of cost of goods sold, or and your fixed costs, right? And how much balance is left. So we're going to look at month to month to month. And for today's activity, I would actually like for all of you to build at least a 12-month projection. Although it's not uncommon for businesses to build a 3 to 5 year projection as well, right? A cash flow projection. For example, if you're taking a bank loan, right? They want to see if the term of the bank loan is 5 years, then they want to see that you are able to service that loan over that period. And how they know that is to look at how much excess margins do you have from your business that can service the loans, right? So cash flow statement is very important, even if you're looking at bank loans or even looking at investors, or even for yourself to know what do you need to do next, right, in order to improve your cash position. Number three, it's very important that your business is profitable so that you have extra money that can be reinvested into business, or it shows that your business is actually in a healthy position. So profit and loss statement is basically identifying the profitability of your business. Oh, sorry. The third one here, if I can just change it, sorry. It's not profit and loss statement, it's actually balance sheet. All right. So looking at this, balance sheet is actually record the total asset that you have, the liability, and the capital. So asset is always a combination of liability plus equity. So some of the asset is generated through loans or through financing, while some of it might come from the shareholder equity, right? So balance sheet actually shows what's the total current asset of your business, right? So profit is fluid, it's a month-to-month basis, but over time, you want to generate a lot of asset for your business, right? All right, so basically this is an illustration of calculating your runway. So you want to look at how many months before you fall off the cliff, right? I'm not gonna dwell too much on this. So how do you calculate how much time you have until you run out of cash? So step one, establish your monthly gross burn rate, right? So look at your variable expenses and look at your fixed operating expenses. So you have to take into account, there's no point of view for you to just cover your fixed costs. Look at how much you are budgeting for the sales that you're targeting. Step two, anticipate the monthly revenue for the next 6 months, for example, calculate the net burn rate, determine your bank balance, and calculate your runway. So here, I think for this example, they're looking at whether you are more than 6 months, but I actually, this is okay, but I actually encourage as you go, as you operate your business longer, to actually try to at least push it to 12 to 18 months, right? But 6 months is all right, I guess, if you're starting out. So here, just an example, gross burn rate is $1,300. So monthly revenue is actually less than the burn rate. So this is usually what happened in the early stage of business. They have actually a graph that looks like a hockey stick where you're actually making a loss maybe for the first 6 months or 3 months, right? So the bank balance is 9,600 ringgit or dollars. So the bank balance divided by the burn rate is actually 8. So you have 8 months of runway before you run out of money. So quite simple there, right? Any question on the burn rate? Anyone need clarification or is unclear?
Sir,
Yes.
I was wondering about the burn rate, right? Is it can burn rate can it also be considered as sort of like the cost, our monthly cost?
Yes, monthly cost divide by how much money you have in the bank. So this is actually a good way of understanding how you should start your business, because sometimes businesses actually start with just hope, meaning that they didn't take into account the capital that they need to actually last for several months or maybe even a year or a year and a half. So when that happens, normally that's when you see some businesses, they give up or they start to feel like, why am I doing, because especially for students, I notice this, why am I doing business and not making any money when I see my friends working for a bank or working for the government making at least like 2,000-3,000 a month, and the pressure starts to come from the family and all that, and then they got off the horse and give up, right? So by having this, at least a level of planning that you need capital to do business, it helps you to actually have some foresight and planning in your business. So thanks for that question, Tate.
I see. Thank you. Thank you.
No worries.
So I got one question.
So now,
About the bank balance, how are we going to set our capital? Like, what's the limit?
usually when you are starting your business, you can look at, there's two ways about it. I think if the partners themselves have capital, so that capital is what you put into your business. For some businesses, they take advantage of some government grants, or they get investors to come in. The investors can be a silent investor or passive investor or even angel investors, and it is, or even if you're not looking at angel investors, they can be just borrowing from family or friends just to help you start off, or at least on the 6 month runway. So the danger that I see for many entrepreneurs is they start with zero capital. Maybe they invest everything in equipments or in stocks and all that. So they would, I would say, I don't like to use this word, it's kind of harsh, but even suffer where they struggle without any income and all that. But that's actually a very dangerous way of running starting your business. So in this case, later I'll show an actual example of your cash position in the beginning, maybe 10,000 ringgit or maybe 5,000 ringgit. That's fine, right? But from there, that will help you when you need to buy stocks or when you need to pay certain suppliers and all that. So starting with zero or negative even can be very risky, because then you come to a halt and you can't do anything and you're always firefighting. So we actually don't encourage that, right? But as we go along, I think the idea of managing cash will become clearer. All right. Okay. Let us move on to the next slide. So managing cash coming into a business. So for many businesses, the idea is always money coming in must be faster and more than money going out. For some businesses, they have a lot of money that's supposed to go in, but it's not coming fast enough. For example, they have to pay their staff monthly, but people have a 60-day term with them. So if they don't have cash in their account, how are they going to service the employee salary, the rental for the first 30 days, because the payment is only coming after 60 days. So for businesses, one way to help that is to have some cash in your current account, and then that can cover for that gap of 30 days or 60 days before you get your payment, if the term is 60 days. Especially if you're working with larger companies, sometimes the term is 30 days, but the process itself to get to the starting point of that 30 days can be a lot longer, or even 60 days can be even 90 days, for example, or longer, right? Sometimes if you're dealing with the government, for example, maybe, I'm just assuming here, maybe the boss is not around and there's no one to sign things. So there are these risks when it comes to cash coming into the business. So here are 4 suggestions on how you can manage cash coming into your business better. So one way is to make collection as convenient as possible, meaning that you can accept online transfer rather than on COD. Maybe the second one is to accelerate receivables, but you can ask for deposits or partial payment. So that can help you at least not being owed the total amount, right? Maybe that will cover some of your costs, plus maybe a little bit. I mean, the next payment is like a bit of the margin plus some of the costs. And number 3 is to negotiate with clients, look at what is a win-win for you rather than just because you want that business, you choose to sacrifice your own cash flow, right? And number 4 is make sure you don't delay on sending your invoice. As soon as the job is confirmed, just send the invoice. Even if they start counting after the job is done, but if the job is confirmed, you should send your invoice early, and you can even send reminders, right? In my case, for example, I know it can be a little bit annoying for the customer if you keep sending invoice, but I know some people who maybe send a 1 week or 1 day before reminder. But for me, if the invoice is sort of like due, I would probably just, not I would probably, I will actually send an invoice to remind them or to inquire why hasn't payment been made, right? In a polite manner, of course. So the key idea here, as I shared earlier, in business, you want money coming in faster than money going out. It's easier for businesses that are doing like coffee shops or retail and all that because you deal in cash, right? But if you're doing a B2B business, or if your revenue model involve a payment term, then you want to manage to ensure that you can get the payment in as fast as possible. For some clients, they dictate it. So they will tell you like 60 days we'll make the payment. In some cases where the client don't dictate it, then they actually ask, what's your payment term? And you can tell them like, our payment term is actually 50% deposit, or our payment term is 14 days or 30 days, right? So you also need to manage cash going out, right? Especially nowadays in a market that's anticipated to be a bit slow because people are losing jobs and people are more cautious about big ticket items. So it is actually a good time for you to reflect on what kind of spending are non-essentials, right? For example, do you really need an extra staff just to make tea, for example, right? Or can you just make tea yourself, right? Can software replace certain staff, for example? Then you can consider that as well. Number 2, you can contact your client or landlord and all that, or vendors, and renegotiate prices. This is actually quite, I think, extensively done because of the COVID-19 situation. So you can actually renegotiate and ask them like, margin is lower, can we renegotiate? Otherwise, we may have to look for other suppliers. So you can leverage, use leverage to your advantage, right? And number 3, manage salary and labor costs. Consider compensation reduction. If in business you cannot, I think you have to be creative and not always play by the book so much. In the past, where I consulted large, I don't mean large, maybe medium size, a company that's generating between 15 to 20 million, for example, where because of the reduction of the oil price, and the client started to renegotiate with them, saying that we can't pay you so much, or we are like slowing down our orders. So in this case, the client of mine actually changed from a 5-day work week to a 4-day work week, where they only pay 80% of the staff salary, for example. It's either that, or they have to close business or have to let people go. So those are examples of how you can manage labor costs if credit is or finance is a bit tough, right? Situation. And the other one is to consider hiring part-time workers. So can be cheaper as well. Pay as you use, freelancers or outsourcing, right? So, give employees unpaid holiday, furlough employee who would be idle, review salary structure and look ways to save cash. I think it's very important here for bosses. If you want to cut your staff salary, make sure you also inform them that you're also tightening your belt, and it's just not a one-way thing where it's your way or the highway. And the other one is to create a short-term plan to lower salaries and wages. I've seen this with some businesses where they say, because of the situation, we're going to cut across the board 15% salary, and we will review it in 6 months whether we're going to cut or we're going to go back to the existing salary. But because of the situation, everybody is in this together, right? So next is to manage your inventory. Sometimes it goes both ways. Sometimes if you want to buy in huge bulk, you have some additional capital, then you can get what we call a trade discount, right? Or you can get a cash discount, meaning that if the price is RM1 and you tell them, if I pay cash and I buy in bulk, can I get it for 75 cents? So those are ways you can manage your inventory. And also look at inventory that's not moving and what's moving and plan accordingly, because you don't want to get into a situation where when people order something, they are like sold out, and then you miss your opportunity for a sale there, right? Make sure that in such challenging time as well, are there inventory that's critical? If there's any shortage in inventory, then you can't operate your business. So something to look at for you to manage as well, because this affect money coming in, right? And one way is to clear inventory as well. If you have a lot of inventory and you're selling products and you want to, you know that the product is not moving, one way of doing it is just to do a promotion like buy one free one, or 50% off or 20% off. That's one way for you to manage your inventory. Okay, so this is the worst case scenario, I guess. If all fails and you can't cover your, I give one very clear example. Cinema now, right? We see many cinema now are not operating because people are just not going to watch movies, and there's not any movies going out as well. So one option that a business can opt for is to actually hibernate, right? To choose to hibernate like a bear during winter, right? So this is to ensure that you can keep your costs at the minimal while getting ready to go back into operations once environment improves, right? So this will stop incurring expenses. So you can, but as a business, as I said, the company actually takes priority here, because if you continue to bleed and all that, you end up actually creating more problem for yourself, right? Because you'll be owing people, and in actual fact, that's not the purpose of starting a business. That the purpose of starting a business is, one of them is to run a profitable business, right? So it's hibernating for you, right? When you forecast a significant drop in sales, this doesn't have to be just because of COVID-19, right? Some businesses, for example, maybe hibernate during Ramadan, right? If there's something, I mean, if they anticipate less business, right? So maybe they operate certain businesses that's still generating revenue, but certain businesses maybe is in hibernation mode, right? And another way is to hibernate is to know that there'll be a light at the end of the tunnel. If you know that within 3 months or 6 months or within a certain period, the market will recover and all that, then hibernation is an option for you. So some best practices for hibernation: avoid taking a significant debt. I think by doing hibernation, then you do not have to take debt just to cover the period of slow business, right? You need to inform your customer that this is positive. I know some businesses, they just say that we're closing because we are doing renovation and all that. So it's a form of hibernating as well. And you can share as well, we'll be back in 3 months time, or we'll be back by Christmas or something like that, right? So what is hibernation? Temporary cessation, meaning pause of business activities with the intention of reopening at a later date, often undetermined, but it can be determined as well, right? So those are 4 things that you can consider if you want to manage your cash flow. Number 1, how do you get money in faster? Number 2, how do you slow down or reduce expenses? Number 3, how do you manage inventory, which is critical for you to sustain and continue your operations? And number 4, if there's nothing else that can be done, you can consider hibernation, right? Rather than shutting down your business. Okay, so in order to make these decisions, you need to document key areas of your business. What is your payroll currently? How is your customers and products, right? Are customers continue to sought for the product, or are there any disruption because of the business environment? One example is as similar to the one that I've shared in our WhatsApp group is people are eating out less. So people still want food, but they don't want the table and chairs and the waiting service and the crowd, the physical area, physical environment where there's a lot of crowd and all that. It's not something that people desire at this time. So it's something for you to consider. Can you remove that and continue to deliver your product? Look at your cash and cost controls. There's many ways to manage costs. I think one of them is agreement, one of them is renegotiating pricing and all that. And the other one is you need to continue to communicate with your customer. This is very important because even if you're in hibernation or even if you are not in operations, you need to continue to tell your customer, continue to tell your suppliers that, and as well as your clients, that you are still in operation. It's just that at the current stage, you are taking certain measures, right? Okay. One way for you to be on top of your business is to use dashboards. Dashboards can come in the form of Excel. It can come in the form of reports that your team produce or you yourself produce. In my case, I use QuickBooks. There are a lot of other softwares as well, which allow you to see the bigger picture. How much are you generating from a month-to-month basis? How many people are owing you? How much are you owing others? How much do you have in your banks, right? If you have several bank accounts, how much do you have in bank 1 or bank 2? So having a dashboard of sales, of cash balance, of receivables, and of payables, right, allow you to make decision quick. And I think it's good hygiene as well, good discipline as well, that you are always looking at your finances, so you can make the necessary action in order to address any shortfalls, right? So this is another advice that I would give for entrepreneurs, because some entrepreneurs, especially early stage entrepreneurs, they tend to not look at their finances so much. I think ignorance is bliss may come in here, can be one of the factors here, but it's important to be very disciplined and try to keep track of your finance, depending on your business, on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, or at least on a minimum on a monthly basis, right? Okay, so in ending the first part of our lesson today, key thing is to stay calm and remember that cash is king. You need cash in order to, cash is actually the lifeline and the lifeblood of a business. So the idea of a business owner, business manager is to ensure that the business always have enough cash for it to continue operations. Then and to take action to do something before you run out of cash. All right. Any question on the first part, managing short-term financial aspects or methods?
Hi. I was actually wondering. So, basically for part one, the timeline for the financial planning, right, is pretty much around 6 to 12 months, right?
6 to 12 months to 18 months. I think
Oh,
if I think the idea of having 6 months is if that runway will give you time to actually enter the market if you're a new business and see whether there is a demand or traction for your business. So maybe after 6 months, if there's no traction and all that, then you know that, okay, I'm going to lose 10,000 ringgit or 30,000 ringgit or 50,000 ringgit. Then it's managed then. And you know the cost for you to either change and pivot your business or continue your business in your current model.
I
But
see.
it is very
And
risky for you to just go in with capital expenditure, meaning that just to start your business, but you don't have any capital to run your business. So you need a balance of capex and also opex.
I see. And I was wondering if, since this is for a period around 6 to 18 months, right? So if we were to say on a scale that is a much more longer term, like per se, like for like 5 years, are there any additional aspects that we need to, include into the financial planning?
Yes, of course, definitely. I think if you're looking at beyond 1 year, for example, right? So one of the things that you may add on for the second year or the third year is to add on assumptions. Assumptions could be maybe you are introducing new product which generate new revenue for your business. So in your financial projection, the first year, the second product doesn't exist or the third product doesn't exist. So for the third year, because you have a new product, then you can anticipate extra revenue. Number two, is you can also look at because in business it's always about acquiring new clients, and some clients will perhaps abandon and drop you, and there will also be new customers coming in. So what another assumption that you can make in your financial projection is it doesn't have to be within the year. It can even be on a quarterly basis, like 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months, and 12 months, where you can anticipate that your client will grow by 1 or 2, for example, if you're in B2B, every quarter or every half yearly or every year. So from then, this additional client will generate additional revenue for you, and that will reflect in your financial projection as well, because projection is basically involve a lot of assumptions, right? The other third one that you can consider when building your financial projection beyond 1 year is also to look at assumptions that there will be increasing costs. For example, some businesses, they will average out that the staff salary will increase about 3% every year. So next year, if the staff salary is at 10,000 ringgit, so it can be 10,030 ringgit, for example, right? 10,300 ringgit, sorry. Right. So those are assumptions that influence your financial projection, right? Take.
I
So
see. I see.
yeah, but that is beyond. But obviously, if you're looking for investors, then you can also look at the cost of financing, right? That means that once you build your cash flow and it turns out that you have a margin of 30%, which is very healthy, right? If you were to invest in unit trust and all that, you probably get like 7, 6 or less percent, right? If you put in fixed deposit, it's 4+%. But if your business model, your projection is very convincing, if it's like 30%, you can actually tell investors that they will get certain amount of return that is better than if they were to invest elsewhere. So that's another function of having a financial projection always at hand when you're starting your business. Right? That's actually what convinces people to come in and invest in your idea.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
No worries. Guys, I can't see my my clock here. I have my watch, but it's automatic, so it's not very accurate. What time is it now?
I think it's 3:40.
Oh, 3:40.
From my yeah.
All right then. I've been talking a lot, huh? Let me see. Is overhead the same as a runway? No, Crystal, I'm sorry. Overhead is not the same as a runway. Overhead is basically your fixed cost. Fixed cost means that a cost that you incur whether you make any sale or not. So an example of an overhead is your salaries, your rental, your utilities, your phone bills. Some people, the overhead is inclusive of their marketing costs. Although you can also put marketing costs as variable costs if you add it as a cost to goods sold, right? So overhead is not the same as the runway. Runway is basically answering this very simple question: how long can I run my business if it continue with this trajectory, or if I don't make any sales, right? An example why I say if it continues in this trajectory is because some of you are doing B2B business. So maybe you already have an order book. So you can actually calculate in, like, for example, one client in Airbus, for example. So Airbus already committed, gonna pay you 100,000 every month. So does it cover your cost? Or if it's not enough, how long can you sustain at this, with this situation, right? Okay. But for me, this subject is very exciting. That's why I think you hear me very excited when talking about money. All right. Number two, let's look at planning for financing the business. Right. So as I mentioned, the cash flow is actually the projection is very important when you want to finance your business. The bank or investors will always ask, have you got your projection? And usually for investors, they probably will not get that capital in the first year. So maybe you will need to do a 5 or even a 10-year, depending on the risk and the margin generated by your business. So in this part, we'll look at, because of the COVID-19 situation, because of the current uncertain environment, we're going to look at the need to pivot your business, right? If your business is affected by the situation, this means that we will relook at our business model and building a cash flow that sustain the new business model, and looking at how can we get financial support, what options have we got, right? So for this section, we're going to look at this one case study. I actually did the logo, just a random name that we created, Ikan Fresh Seafood, right? So this business was launched in 2018. The tagline is bringing the catch of the day your way, right? So it has 3 co-founders. The value added is connect fishing companies with seafood restaurants, meaning that they don't have to go to supermarket, they don't have to go to a retailer to get their fish. They can get it directly from the dock, right? So within 2 years or a year plus, they have managed to secure 30 customers. And the unique thing about them is everything is done via an app. They can see what are the catch of the day. They can place order and schedule for delivery. So this is the original business model canvas for Ikan Fresh Seafood. So for Ikan Fresh Seafood, the focus is on fish currently. So they focus on fish serving restaurants in Kuching. The value proposition is increased access to fish variety, negotiated prices, meaning that the Ikan company actually negotiated with the suppliers good price already, better than the ones that you get on the market, on a hypermarket or retail outlets. It's fresh because it's from the docks, and it utilizes an online sales platform. So customer relationship is fully online, and there's a newsletter to update customer on maybe tips and seasons and all that. Next is a delivery from the dock to restaurants using private drivers. So there's drivers that we need to pay as well. Looking at the key activities, contract with fishermen, building number of client restaurants, daily update on website, key resources, sales platform, relationship with diverse suppliers, line of credit to pay fish companies. And then key partnership with seafood, taxi association, private drivers, fishing authority, National Restaurant Association, and local banks. So customer pay the total amount, and then 50% of that total amount goes to the fish company, 15% goes to the driver. Is it 15%? Never mind. I think it's 5%. I think it's 5%, typo here. Let me fix that. And then estimated operating expenses of 20% and estimate profit of 15% for the company, for Ikan's fresh seafood. So this is example of a 12-month, it is not so much a projection, but an actual history between June to May. So the financial year starts at June and ends in May. For many of your businesses, it's important to know when's your financial year. For me, it's always, I think it's a personal preference. I always like to start my financial year in January. So it's easy for me just to run it through December, right? So here, the focus is on fish. So we can see that the bulk of the revenue comes from the fishes, right? And then second comes from the seafood. And then thirdly, it comes from side dishes. Maybe they sell some vegetables and all that they can get at the dock area, so they can supply those as well. So the total monthly, yearly revenue is at 180,000 here, right, based on these estimates. Okay. Next, then we look at the cash flow for the last 12 months. So they generated a sale of 180,380, 45% gross margin, 55% cost, 50% goes to the fishermen, and another 5% goes to the delivery partners, whether they are private drivers or whether they are taxi drivers. So the operating expenses come at 45,000 ringgit. So you see here, there's 50% go to payroll, some goes to rent, some goes to utilities, marketing, accounting, legal, software, and office supplies. Basically, they are a tech company. They are a platform that helps connect fishermen, restaurants, and drivers, right? So here, the cash profitability is 36,076 ringgit, right? So if we look at the top part here, at May 19th, they have a cash in hand of 20,000. So that's some cash for them to pay whatever shortfall when they are dealing with account receivable or account payables, right? So if you look at the 20,000 ringgit and the end margin of 36,000 ringgit, so at the end of the financial year, the company has grown their bank balance or cash on hand from 20,000 to 50,076 ringgit, right? So this is where we got the money. This is how we calculate the break even. Once we know the total overhead, like what Crystal said just now, once we know the total fixed cost, you divide that by the margins, by the contribution margin of 45% here, right? Then gross margin here. Then you know that they need to make a sale of at least 100,211 just to break even. So if they make a sale of 90,000, then they are at a loss. But if they make a sale of 100,211, the company is at just zero, meaning no profit, no loss, right? I mean, obviously you would want to work to get profit, right? So suddenly COVID-19 happened, everybody starts wearing masks, everybody starts social distancing, everybody's going out less, right? So this Ikan business has to change because the sales from restaurants is dropping dramatically, right? So the Ikan partners need to decide whether to pivot, right? So pivot is any change to your business model, big or small. Example of pivot is changing your target customer, changing your product, and changing your distribution channel, right? So there's a product pivot, there's a customer segment pivot. In this case, we'll show that Ikan is actually changing the customer segment. Customer need pivot, because they change the customer segment, the need may be different as well. Channel, technology, and engine of growth pivot, right? So engine of growth pivot, for example, If a business is in cinema and they know that cinema is not doing well, then maybe they will pivot to a streaming service or other form of delivery of the content, maybe downloads or something, right? So you will need to decide whether to pivot or not based on COVID-19's impact on your community and business. So pivoting Ikan fresh seafood, right? So seafood for family. So because they cannot serve the restaurant, now they want to target end users, people who are cooking more, because they notice that during COVID-19, there are a lot of YouTube videos and all that on preparing foods, and they think that there's an opportunity for them there. So they are changing from restaurant delivery to home delivery. They are changing as well from fish to seafood. Maybe they think that for restaurants, maybe the food is a bit consistent if they sell a lot of fish and all that. But at home, people might want variety. So maybe I think seafood is a better product for them to offer this new customer segment, right? Due to customer preference and maybe supply chain disruption, right? That's something that they analyze and we have brought into this discussion. Number 3 is they need to change their website because now they are targeting a different customer, and they need to focus more on good photos as well as assurance, because for families, they're taking care of the family. They want to know that the supplier is having good practices in terms of hygiene and all that. So these are the pivot that Ikan Fresh Seafoods need to do on their business model. Right? It's interesting, even when we're talking about finance today, cash and cost management, we still go back to our business model canvas. So this is the new business model canvas. Before this, they were focusing on food, on fish. Now they are focusing on seafood, right? So here, the new customer segment is seafood serving families in middle class and affluent neighborhood, meaning that they're not just targeting broad families, they are targeting middle class and affluent areas which are not affected by, maybe not so affected by the COVID-19 economic effect, right? So the value proposition now is the family get access to seafood variety. It's cheaper because you negotiated with the fishermen and the fish seafood companies. It's fresh, online sales platform. Some changes on the website. Key resources is enhanced hygiene practices is something that is desirable by the customer, and it's something that they want to see as a value proposition. Not much changes on key partnership, but there are some changes in revenue stream. Customer prepay online, meaning that they pay first and then we'll send the food. If you are purchasing again, we offer discounts to customers, and we also, because this is a new market, they have this strategy where there's discount when you refer to a different customer or a new customer. So this is the revenue stream that Ikan Fresh Seafood has developed. But more importantly, we look at the cost structure. So Ikan Fresh Seafood actually, because there's less demand from restaurants, they actually negotiated a better price from the fish company. They didn't negotiate with the drivers, but they look at lowering their payroll into half and leveraging on outsourcing, because they think that the website actually does a lot of the work and they don't need to pay so much of salary. So here, the profit increased from 15% to 29%, meaning that they turn a difficult situation to a situation where they can actually generate more profit, right? So how will these business changes impact, how will it change impact, sorry, I need to change it. Impact Fresh Seafood's cash flow. So let's look at this, right? So before we go there, we look at the financial statement again, summarize the amount of cash and cash equivalents entering and leaving the company. Cash flow statement measures the cash position of the company, meaning how well the company generates cash to pay its debt obligation and funds its operating expenses. So how do we build cash flow? Why do we build cash flow, sorry? To understand when you will need additional financial resources to run the business. Who is it for? Cash flow is something that you can use yourself, your management team, as well as people you approach for financing. This could be banks, investors, as I mentioned earlier. what our outside partners are looking for, that you understand the business, that you anticipate profit, and then you are able to repay the loan that are provided, or you're able to provide returns on investment if it is in the form of investments. So critical pieces of a cash flow is a sales forecast, cash in, where the money is coming from, cash out, cost of goods sold and operating expenses, investment requirement if you're looking for investment, loans and capital requirement. These are optionals if you are looking for capital. So this is how it looks like now. So by this pivot, they're looking at from June 2020 to May 2021. So if you see here, most of the income is coming from seafood now. So before this, you see most of Ikan's revenue coming from fish, but now most of the revenue is coming from seafood, right? And we can see here as well, the payroll has been reduced, and they actually make a bigger margin, right? Because of better negotiated prices with the suppliers and also reduced payroll. So the cash position from May 20 at 56,000, if we saw earlier, from June to May 20. Now from June 20 to May 21, the cash position is actually almost doubled to 102,000. So if do they require loans? It doesn't look like it, but if they're looking for expand, I think it is quite an attractive proposition for investors. Right? Maybe they want to go into another city, and when they want to replicate this business model that they've created, right? Meaning that it is not so affected by COVID because they are targeting directly to consumer, right? So in some cases, you may look at acquiring financial support, not just to sustain your business, but also expansion. If you think there are opportunity. So if you are looking to get investment, it's not going to be like, usually it will take at least 30 days to maybe even 3 months for you to do the exercise. You need to assess the risk and return for your business as well as for investors. I mean, understand the market. We've done the exercise with business environment and all that. And you need to act quickly as well, because sometimes if you need capital and you, I think if time is of an essence, you need to act swiftly, right? So demonstrate your plans. This is where it is very important, and it's also what we're looking at with Shell LiveWIRE, which is your business model canvas that can survive the business environment. And number 2 is your financial projection. And think about whether there are collaterals or equity that you are offering. What can you put forth in order to secure the financing? Sometimes there is such thing as converting debt into equity, meaning that if you can't pay the debt, then that debt can be turned into equity in your business. Okay, my last slide, last 2 slides, sorry. Negotiating for financial support, check for the latest offerings from the bank, whether you can postpone and delay payment, whether there's a possibility of lowering payments, moratorium, I think very popular lately, reduce payment, reduce interest rate, and sometimes you can extend a credit line, meaning that rather than paying 5 more years, you extend it to another 2 years, but it may make it more difficult because the longer it is, the more costly it is, right? And think about impact of your credit score as well. So whenever you are running a business, you always want to make sure that your credit score is good, because that way when you need capital, whether to sustain or whether to grow, you expand your business, you have it, right? So these are some alternative financial supports that are available. Government are always giving out grants, giving out guaranteed loans or loans that are easier to secure or more favorable terms, right? The other one is to do invoice financing. If you have order books and all that, you can actually ask people to finance you or financial institution to finance you, and then share the profit. And lastly, I think very popular these days is crowdfunding, as well as P2P lending on the internet, right? That is quite a popular it's quite a mode that's gaining popularity. All right. So that's it for us today. And we have an activity where you need to build a 12-month cash flow projection based on your business model canvas and the business environment where you are operating. And as Amanina has done, we have also shared a template for you to work on for the 12th month. But if you feel like you want to build a 3-year or a 5-year, go ahead, right? We'll be more than happy to review that. All right. So with that, guys, I just want to open for questions. Any questions? Can we put on your camera, guys, so we can take a selfie as usual?
Sure, sure.
Yeah. This is not a test to see whether you're sleeping, huh? I hope it has been interesting. Finance is always a subject that I quite love. I think for many of you in business, apart from your passion and all that, you guys also want to make it big, right? Okay, I'm gonna wait for everyone to turn on your camera. Hold on, huh? Wait for a bit. What time is it, guys? Sorry, I don't have my watch with me.
Sorry, for me it's like 4:03. Yeah.
Not bad. We just we're on time. I was scared I'd be talking until 5 just now. All right, guys. Assuming some of you maybe malu kot tak nak buka kamera, right? Like apa? It's a baby lake there, right? Is that a baby lake? Okay. Okay. Let me just snap a photo, huh? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I thought there's more people. How do I? Never mind. All right. Snap. Let me take another one. Okay. All right. Taken the photo as evidence that we have done this class. But any question, guys? About cash flow. Do you guys have any issues or challenges with managing your cash flow? Do you monitor your cash position monthly if you're already operating your business? You can answer or you can type it on chat. Let me just check chat. All right. Previously, our scheduling is done face-to-face, hands-on training, pivoting from this model. We are looking at online training, skill training, challenge outcome may not be so effective because we need to be on. All right. Dennis is saying that it's a challenge to pivot from physical classes to online classes. I think there's some truth in that. I think, Dennis, right? I think even ourselves in the training line, right? We are. I think when you conduct physical one-to-one class, I think there's a lot of non-verbal exchanges and all that where you can guess read from the body language, the level of understanding, the level of engagement as well, right? And I think doing things by hand makes it better for people to remember things, right, and to understand things. But again, with many multinational companies that we are working or talking with, I think the safety is always a priority for them. I think it's better to sacrifice that physical contact rather than risk a total shutdown of their business, right? So, but maybe there are opportunity for improvement in the training space through softwares, right? I think for like what we do, design thinking and all that. People are using software like Mural and Jamboards and all that, right? And even for Shell LiveWIRE, we are trying out with Google Docs, where rather than, I mean, people get to amend their work real time and all that, right? So that's number one. I got a question from Sarah Nadia Shoaib here. For the financial projection activity, do we start this month or January? I think it's up to you. If you think that you want to start your business in January, then you can go ahead and do it in January. But if you want to change it next month, it can be as soon as November or October even. But October may be a bit too soon, right? The month is already halfway there. Maybe you can start from November, right? But even then, if you're starting from January, I think it gives you 2-month head start to prepare for that, right? Okay, Amalina. It depends what business you are in. Amalina is asking, now that the rental is low, should we consider expanding? But if you're expanding and you can generate revenue from it, yes. But otherwise, maybe there's a reason why the market is for rental is slow, right? Maybe there's no footfall, there's no demand, right? So maybe the idea, rather than tapping on that opportunity, unless they're giving it for you for free, but even then you still have to do renovations and all that. So is that the best use of your capital, right? Or is your capital better used to be invested in technology? Because from what we see now, many businesses that are doing well now are businesses that operate at a very low cost and they are adapting technology, right? Most of the businesses that addresses the current need or the changing needs of businesses and even consumer are the one that are doing better during this time, right? I think, for example, the financial sectors, the online fintech are doing better now because people are afraid to go to the branch. Sometimes you can even wonder whether, all these rumors about customers getting COVID and all that is actually accelerating or shifting people more towards fintech, right? Early, I'm also encountering the same issue with Dennis. But guys, usually if you're facing the issue, right, everybody in your sector is facing the same issue. So whoever respond the best is the one that will win, right? So we cannot, I mean, sometimes when it's too good, it's not good as well, because that way it makes the business saturated, it pulls down the margin. But if you're able to offer a solution that addresses all the customer pain gains and job that they need to get done, remember when we did our value proposition canvas, and that's where you can solve this. I think with COVID-19 and even with recession last time, because I am old enough to have gone through a recession. Usually, it is during this recession time and all that that people are considering new vendors, smaller vendors, right? For new businesses, I see this as an opportunity for you, right? So usually if they negotiate with larger companies and all that, it's hard for them to change their product or their cost structure is so expensive. So it is something that you can come in, assure them that the quality is by no way compromised, and you can actually deliver the service and need that they are looking for, right? So any other question, guys? But I hope, my suggestion is, please start with your assignment. You can just submit them first to Amanina, and then we only review it at the end of the course. So it means that's why, because it is a cloud system, right? The Google Docs, right? Meaning that you can still amend it, but if you ran out of time, at least you submitted it, right? Just in case, internet shutdown or some issues, I suggest just start, because there's going to be 10 activities. So if you do everything at the end, it may be a bit, it may be a bit rushed, right? So spend some time, look at it, change things, right? But I would suggest to submit first, right? Okay. Last call for questions, if there's no question. Finance is very, very critical in business, right? I think that you always have to wear that hat, like the product hat, the consumer service, the customer service hat, and also the financial controller manager hat, right? But the very basic thing, revenue, cost of goods sold, and your fixed costs. Look at these three things, then you can manage your profitability, right? Okay, if there is no question, then we call it a day, guys. Thank you so much. I hope it has been useful for all of you. And I'll see you next week, right? I think next week we're going to cover market research and social media, I think, right? So we'll cover that next week. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't forget to fill up the survey form. Huh?
Thanks, sir.
Hold on, huh? I'll post it in the group as well. But the survey form is here. The link, you can scan it, and I'll share it in the group. Right? This is the My Sejahtera app. Right? Okay, guys. Thank you.